Hi everyone, and welcome to StudioJake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to like this video and subscribe wherever you're listening. I'm all over the place. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Rumble, I'm on Odyssey. So definitely, wherever you're watching, I really appreciate it. Give me a like, leave a comment, because it helps the algorithm across the board. Share it out so your friends find out about me and all my pop culture commentary here on StudioJake. Like I said, I'm your host, Jacob Airy. So, today, and excuse my arm reach as I go about to my laptop, I wanted to talk about the Oscars. So, I actually didn't watch the Oscars. Normally, I do watch them. I make a big deal out of it. Not really. It's more of a subtle deal. But I do like seeing what films the rest of us ignored that Hollywood chooses to uplift. And we see this every year. This past year, I actually opted not to watch them at all because no film that I liked got a meaningful nomination. And don't give me that whole, oh, Jacob, all the awards are meaningful. Bull crap. No, come on. Everyone knows we only care about Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Soundtrack. And then if you're like me, you care about Best Animation film. You don't care about anything else unless you're like super technical and niche. No one else cares about these other categories. Sorry, not even Best Supporting Actor or Best Supporting Actress, which is a shame because usually the people who win those at least deserve them. But that's neither here nor there. I want to just talk about the Best Picture issue, because here's something that I talked a little bit about on Twitter, which you can follow me at RealJacobBerry. I'm a verified Twitter account. I don't actually think verified is something to brag about. I just like throwing it out there because it's fun. Anyway, neither here nor there. So the Best Picture nominees were Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, The Trial of the Chicago 7, with Nomadland winning Best Picture. And also, the film star Frances McDormand, she actually won Best Actress. Hats off to her. I'm so glad because I was having this conversation with my wife, because I hate to say this, but when a Hollywood actress gets a certain age, it's like Hollywood thinks she has a shelf life and that it's expired. And that's not true. A lot of these actresses are incredibly talented, but they end up getting like really rotten roles unless they really put a lot of plastic in their skin. And me personally, I don't think that's fair. So I was happy to see Frances McDormand win Nomadland, because for one thing, she's a very lovely lady, and she did do a good job in that role. Hats off to her. Now, speaking of which, of the Best Picture nominees, I only saw two, or I'm sorry, I saw three. Nomadland, which I watched right before the Oscars. When I heard it had been nominated, it became available for free on Hulu, so I watched it there. Judas and the Black Messiah, which of course premiered on Netflix. And I actually called it. I didn't necessarily say that it would win, but in my movie review of Judas and the Black Messiah, I said we have an Oscar contender here. I was right. And then, of course, Mank. Now, it's such a shame with Mank because Hollywood is doing this thing now where they're making these biopics, but then they're using the biopics of the person they're trying to tell the story to make some sort of point. We saw this with Netflix's Sergio. It was about a UN negotiator, and they just turned it into a propaganda film about the UN. Oh, the UN is so wonderful, and they're so great, and we're not like that arrogant USA. Oh my gosh, we're the UN. And then, of course, he ends up getting killed by terrorists because he was like, you arrogant Americans here in Iraq, I don't need you to protect my compound, give away. And then, of course, the terrorists in Iran proceed to blow him up. So, and like I said, I'm talking about the movie specifically. I have no idea what the real Sergio was because they turned his biopic into a propaganda film, and they did the same thing with Mank. Now, what carried Mank as a movie is Gary Oldman is a fantastic actor. He's probably one of the best living actors alive today, hands down. Bottom line, end of story. Now, I'm saying the best. I really don't think we have the best actor acting right now, but of the ones living who are active, absolutely. So he carried this film, but again, they turned it into a propaganda piece, and they tried to attach it into Hollywood trying to help A Republican candidate beat a more socialist candidate who was played by Bill Nye, the anti-science guy. He's not actually a scientist, but he thinks he is because he played one on TV a long time ago. But anyway, these movies, though, are exactly what I'm talking about. So Nomadland, while a very good, well-made movie, I don't really think it was Best Picture material. And that's not an insult to everyone. Like I said, I thought it was a fine film, but I did not think it deserved Best Picture. The Father, no one cared about that movie. There was no buzz about it. Judas and the Black Messiah. A lot of, shall we say, socially active critics really tried to push this film. Very well made cinematically. They did do a lot of history distortion in it. No Way, like I just talked about Mank. Minari, didn't see. Again, not a lot of buzz about it. I'm sure it's a fine movie. Promising Young Woman, which also won Best Original Screenplay. It's a revenge movie about a woman who tries to kill like all these men who are involved in like a rape incident of one of her friends, of the main character's friends. Yeah, that's pretty much a bunch of movies. I think even Cynthia Rothrock was in a similar film called, China O'Brien, though I think in that case her father was killed, not her friend. Sound of Metal, again, a movie no one heard of. No one heard about this movie. The Trial of Chicago 7, a Netflix film, which was about a bunch of terrorists who were really, who caused like a massive riot in Chicago, but they're using the trial of the Chicago 7 to kind of address kind of what's happening in modern civilities, because these guys acted like jerks the whole trial. They got so many citations for being out of order, all kinds of stuff, and they deserved probably more sentencing than they got just for their behavior in court, whatever you want to say about their behavior in the streets. But anyway, no one heard about these movies. And now I know that 2020 was kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? It was a little bit of a slow pace when it came to films. Now, a lot of movies got delayed, they were put off. It was kind of a slower landscape. No one actually saw some of the movies that had been nominated or had been given awards, and I really think that this goes to the disconnect between Hollywood and the audience that they're trying to connect to. Actually, not trying to connect to, trying to say, look, we gave you this gift, you better appreciate that. Like we have seen a lot of directors and producers take this attitude. And as I pointed out on Twitter, there was this time when it seemed like the general audience went to the films that critics and that Hollywood were kind of pushing. So, and please note, I'm not saying like classic films like The Godfather didn't deserve their Best Picture award, or even more modern ones like The King's Speech or The Artist. But when you look at where the disconnect is, it actually, you can see it at the advent of the internet and with social media. So, like for instance, when Citizen Kane and It's a Wonderful Life came out in theaters, the critics savaged both those films. Now they try to be like, oh, Citizen Kane, oh, we always loved it, blah, 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 blah. We always loved it. That's actually not true. It wasn't really till later when they actually started to admit, oh, yeah, I guess it was kind of a good movie. And that's because the movie was kind of a biopic of a media mogul named Hearst. Hearst newspaper still exists to this day. And he got his army of press junkets to give it a bad film. And kind of this similar situation with It's a Wonderful Life. And I even still will combat colleagues of mine who think It's a Wonderful Life isn't a great movie. It's probably the greatest Christmas movie ever made besides A Charlie Brown Christmas. But, again, neither here nor there. Both these movies were critically disasters, and because of
well, I guess Citizen Kane wasn't really a critical disaster, but it didn't really do as good as it could have. In the case of It's a Wonderful Life, the movie studio actually let it go into public domain because it was so poorly received. So movie channels would just run it for free every Christmas, and then that's when its popularity came back up. So why is this? I think it's because before the advent of the internet and social media and tracking websites like Rotten Tomato or IMDb or other places, you you didn't really have a way for the audience to have a really way to communicate with each other than by word of mouth, which can be fast or slow depending on the film. So I really think what was going on back then is when there seemed to be a consensus is a lot of these films were because they went and read the critics and they thought, oh, this critic liked this movie, so I'm going to go and I'm going to go watch it. So I really feel like that is where it was. All they had was the critics. All they had was the posters for your consideration and all that jazz. So I really think that when you connect the fact that now social media kind of puts power back in the hands of the audience, this can be both a good thing and a bad thing. Now, me, I'm more of a populist. Especially when it comes to the entertainment industry, I think the power should be in the hands of the audience. Now, that power doesn't always work out so well. You know, we saw this with the DCEU. They with now in the case maybe that's a bad example because I actually think that Zack Snyder's cut should have been released as bad as it was. I do think that it should have been released because of how wrongfully he was treated by Warner Media. Now, in other cases, like with Suicide Squad, where we've had David Ayer, the director, he went out and supported the theatrical cut. And he was like, oh, it's such a wonderful movie. It goes right hand in hand, and Jared Leto's the greatest actor ever. And then the movie comes out, turns out the movie isn't that good. Jared Leto is a terrible actor. And now he's all, oh, me, it's because I didn't get my cut. It's because it got in the editing room. Now it's all mashed up. And then I'll have people say, well, he had to say that because it was coming out. And I was like, okay, so he's a sellout. Like, at least with Zack Snyder, he stood his ground with his cut. With David Ayer, he was a sellout for a paycheck. So, so in some ways, the audience can be used in a negative way, but like in the case of Sonic the Hedgehog, here's an example of positive fan influence where the original trailer dropped. They had a really ridiculous Sonic the Hedgehog look, so they revamped it, gave the fans what they want, and the fans rewarded them for it. And I really feel, so it can be a double-edged sword, but I feel like Hollywood, if they want to make movies like The Trial of the Chicago 7, or Call Me By Your Name, the pro-pedophilia movie, same with Cuties, which of course Cuties is a foreign film, so maybe that's a bad example, but with Call Me By Your Name, or The Shape of Water, which is about a girl falling in love with a fish, or fish man, whatever. They want to keep making these films. That's fine, but they shouldn't get mad and throw these these tantrums. Oh, I can't believe no one appreciates my genius. Like what Zack Snyder does whenever someone dares to challenge his genius, he throws a fit. Oh, you think your superheroes don't lie to the government? You can't do that. That creates more of a split. We see this happening with Star Wars with they send out these nuts like Pedro Pascal to talk about their franchises, and then they don't understand why they can't get anyone to buy Star Wars: The High Republic. So I really feel that is where it is, and now the consumer has a way to let people know exactly what they thought of their films. And this is a good thing in the sense that it could help return Hollywood back to where it was trying to make movies that everyone could do. It wasn't trying to just tap into this woke kind of scoldish, we're going to lecture you kind of message. Because like I said, with some of these picks, like for instance Nomandland, it's not a lecturing movie. It's a very somber, very contemplative movie. Again, really well made. But I don't think, if you watch that movie, you don't go, wow, when the credits roll. You may go, wow, but you don't go, wow. You know, it's not like a Godfather or The King's Speech or Ben-Hur or something like that. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. We can have these movies and we can have them win awards. But I would like to see Hollywood go back to sort of a position where they were trying to make films for all Americans, not for an overseas box office, and certainly not for the commies in China. I'm talking about the audience here at home. That goes back to why I think that the Oscars failed this year. They were the lowest watched ever in the history of the show. In 2021, when people are still under constitutional deficient lockdowns because of the beer bug. Absolutely ridiculous. It should have been the most watched event on television. But guess what I was doing? I was watching the Viva Barnes live stream. Because for one thing, Viva Barnes are really great. And for another, I couldn't care less. I didn't want to hear a bunch of rich elitists who are wearing $10,000 outfits lecture me about how I have this or I don't have that, or I need to be more woke because they say so, and blah, blah, blah. No one wants to hear that. Hollywood needs to readjust. They are an entertainment industry, and they need to focus on that. Art and the masses have to connect somehow. And you know, and if a director wants to go off the lamb and he wants to do something super artistic and super different, let him do it. Let him have his vision. I'm not saying those movies shouldn't be made, but I am saying just because they're made doesn't mean the audience owes that director or the producer or the writer or the celebrities who star in them a shred of acknowledgement, if you will. So that's my Oscars rant. I hope it made sense. I know I kind of went off in a whole bunch of bunny trails. I hope you were able to keep track. In the meantime, all my socials are in the description below. Check them out, or they could be linked in other places depending on where you're watching, but definitely check them out, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.